But let me ask you, as you were talking to Dr. Moody, how common did he say these experiences were, these near-death
He said back in the 1980s, of course, he's interviewed thousands and thousands of people over the years that have had these experiences.
Wow.
But some scientists did a study, and based on the number of people that they had interviewed and projected that into the larger population, it was millions of people who they estimated had probably had that experience. I think something like 7 or 8 million. And as that experience has become more talked about in our society, people aren't labeled weird or crazy when they talk to their family and friends about it. More people are speaking about these experiences as we've gone along.
I remember it took Betty Eady something like years and years for her family and friends to finally convince her to write a book, because she was afraid it would be a waste of time. Everyone would just laugh at her. And of course it wasn't. It was a bestseller for like 9 months. You know, people weren't laughing at all. So you're right. People have a real keen interest in this. The people that you said that commonly they're given a choice. You can come back or you can stay. Of course, he can only interview the people who chose to come back.
Right.
When they come back, do they come back with any lessons that they've learned or anything like that that they can share?
They do, indeed. And some people, when they come back, they may not remember everything that happened during the experience. And certainly a lot of people are pronounced dead and come back and don't remember even any experience at all. But the lesson that people have is that love matters, that we're here for a purpose. I mean, people that have tried to commit suicide, when they come back, there's almost no instance of them trying to repeat their suicide attempt after that, because they see that there's purpose to life and that love matters and that there is a reason that they're here. He tells the story of one minister, a fundamentalist minister, who died and had a near-death experience. And during that life review part of it, he saw himself at a pulpit preaching fire and brimstone, which he had done all his life, and suddenly he found himself, he saw this little boy in the congregation, which he had no relationship to, but he found himself in the awareness of that little boy.
Yes.
And he saw the fear, and felt the fear that that little boy had because of what he was preaching to the congregation.
Yes.
And after he saw that, this presence that was with him, who he called Jesus, the presence said, not in a condemning way or a judging way, but it said, I don't guess you'll be preaching like that anymore, will you? And when he came back to life, to the body, he told people, he said, the most magnificent thing was, I've realized that God doesn't care about my theology, but that it was love and how we care for one another and how we demonstrate that in our lives day to day. That was the most important thing. People that have died tend to have a strong spiritual urge to know more and to study and to grow spiritually after they come back.
So they do come back with a little different point of view then, don't they?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And no fear of death. I know a friend of mine who, she's in her 70s now, and when she was in her 20s, she had a near-death experience. She was pronounced dead. She remembers floating above her body in the hospital, and the doctor saying she's gone, and she was saying, I'm not gone, you know. But she said ever since, and then when she came back into the body, she has never had a fear of death since then, because to these people that have had this experience, they know that life continues. They may or may not know that they come back or what happens further on after they're dead longer, but it gives them that strong sense that there is a continuity to existence.
I was going to ask you, do any of them report any kind of awareness that they've had previous lives or that they'll come back for any more lives?
Raymond Moody has said that it doesn't really prove or disprove it. The people that have commented on that felt like they weren't quite far enough along in the process to know whether it was true or not.
Okay.
So, but they do strongly believe there's a continuity of life, but whether or not they come back, the near-death experience itself is not, according to him, proof or not of that it's true.
Yeah. Now, I know that you're a longtime student of the Ageless Wisdom, and I am too, that included in the Ageless Wisdom philosophy or view of life and the universe is the idea of rebirth, the idea that when we die, that our spirit takes on different bodies and keeps coming back as we continue to learn the lessons that this planet Earth our home, has to teach us, and that each time we pick up where we left off and continue to grow until we don't need bodies and don't have any more lessons to learn, which I have a hard time imagining myself. But that idea of rebirth, in the East they call it reincarnation, is not very popular among Christians. Why, do you have any idea why that is?
Well, early in the history of Christianity, reincarnation, rebirth, it's thought that it was really widely discussed and pondered upon by people of the faith, that it wasn't, so far-fetched to people. In fact, there's instances which people point to in the New Testament of Jesus talking about the idea of reincarnation. But in the 6th century, the Emperor Justinius, who was the Roman emperor at the time, had the teachings of a theologian back then. His name was Origen. Had his teachings branded anathema, and some think that it was because he was trying to consolidate the Roman Empire again and get people living together, and he couldn't have all these divergent types of philosophies going on, and he wanted to bring people around the flagpole of one religion and not have all these things that would make it harder to people to work and live together. And so the teachings of Origen were branded anathema, but it was funny that at that meeting, when they did that, all these bishops that he had there, the Pope wasn't even there. These were all friends, or what you will, or bishops of the Emperor Justinius. So the teaching was expunged from the Christian faith starting back then, but people tended to believe it off and on. But I think why people have such a hard time with it today is because it goes against everything that we've been taught in terms of judgment, the purpose of Jesus dying on the cross, the vicarious atonement. I mean, what does it say about our sins being forgiven and us going to hell? If there's reincarnation, what does Jesus' death on the cross mean? And people don't want to deal with the ramifications of that because it brings into question so much of the Christian teaching. So people don't like the idea of that being wrong, what they've been taught. The church wants power over people, and if people have many lives to get it right and to become better people, then what do they need the church for? And also people don't like the idea of having to come back and going through the same sorrows, the same pains that they've had to go through in this life. They like the idea of, well, this is just one life, it's painful, but once I'm gone, I'm out of here, I'm through the pearly gates, and that's where I'm going to be for all time.
Yeah. It is strange because there's one scene in the New Testament of the Christian Bible where the disciples ask Jesus straight up. They say, "Is John the Baptist Elias returned?" And he says yes. He doesn't say, "What a stupid question. Why would you even?" He just says yes. A real simple answer. And you do get the feeling that it was probably understood at the time.
And there's another saying in there too, where they're asking Jesus about a blind man, and they say, "Why is this man blind? Did he sin or did his parents sin?" Which to many people, it was just common knowledge that people believed in reincarnation during that time.
He couldn't have possibly sinned to cause himself to be born blind unless it was in a previous lifetime. Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't know is Jesus was a member or really close to the Essene community of that time, and the Essenes believed in the coming back of the soul to the body over time.
Where does that? Well, I was going to say where does that take us with the crucifixion, and what does all that mean? Do you have a short answer?